flying there in 2 days. I can't wait to get the hell out of here and get on a plane and go to Jacksonville.
Where is there?
I'm in Vegas, man. I'm in Vegas. And usually Vegas is a great place to be. Nowhere is a great place to be right now. You want to be anywhere but where you are, and I can't wait to get there.
Hey, record that and send it to the city of Jacksonville, by the way, the Bureau, because Visit Jacksonville.
Oh, of
Dana
course,
White just said, I can't wait to get the hell out of Vegas and go to Jacksonville.
Exactly. I like it.
Hey, how hard was this to do it? You had obviously been in the headlines and about trying to get the fights and keep them going, and you almost had it going in California. Then everybody called that one off, at least put it on hold, and now here we are, May 9th, coming up Saturday night right here at VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville. How hard was this to finally get going?
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things that we've ever done as a company and me professionally in my entire career. And believe me, we've done some tough stuff. It was hard to do, yet it was fun, challenging. Me and my crew would get a bunch of work done, and we'd go to bed that night and wake up the next day, and the whole all the rules had changed, and we had to start all over again, literally every day. So it was tough.
Hey, what's up, Dan? This is Austin Lane. It's great to hear from you again, man.
You too, buddy.
Listen, in terms of the fights coming to Jacksonville, right? Obviously, I train MMA. I know a lot of people that are super excited for this card. I know a lot of people that are super bummed that they can't actually go witness this fight in person in UFC 249. It's almost like having the best party ever, but no one can be invited to it. You have to watch it on TV. With that being said, though, I mean, could we see possible fights down the line for the city of Jacksonville? Because they kind of did you a favor, possibly, with having the fights here, the 3 fight cards coming up. So could we see fights in the future now in Jacksonville, Florida?
You got that right. That's absolutely what we're going to do. When the world gets back to normal, we're going to the Indian Reservation in California, for the first fight there, and we will definitely be back to Jacksonville with a big fight and, get all the people from Jacksonville in the arena. It'll be great.
Dana White with us, president of the UFC. How much risk is involved here?
How much risk? I mean, everything. Listen, it's riskier for me to drive home after this interview. Everything in life is risky. There are no guarantees. But we're doing everything we can possibly do. We submitted a 30-page document to the governor of Florida and the governor of Nevada on all the things that we're going to do to make sure that this event is as safe as possible. And, we're going to spend a lot of money to do it.
Dana, obviously, right now with the landscape of COVID-19, it's probably hard to get a true fight camp in with gyms being closed and everything. What percentage of fighters would you say on the roster right now are actually excited to, try to get a fight coming back up? And what percentage of fighters would you say are kind of going to stay low right now and wait till everything clears up?
We've had good response from the fighters. I mean, that's why, listen, nobody that's working this event as far as an employee of mine or fighter has been made to do this. These guys all want to do it. Everybody who's a part of this event wants to be a part of it. I haven't laid any employees off. We came up with stipend money for the fighters that couldn't fight. The list goes on and on. So everybody who's a part of this thing wants to fight. And if people don't want to fight, they don't have to. We'll be back up and running May 9th. Who knows how long this thing's going to last? But, people can come in and still get fights toward the end of the year or whatever they want to do.
Obviously, with UFC 249 coming up, I mean, it's one of the most stacked cards literally of all time. I mean, I compare it to like UFC 100, really. It's that great and everything. Let's be honest, though, and I'm going to knock on wood as loud as I can for you, but, things can happen, right? Fighters can get hurt. Fighters can have trouble cutting weight. With the COVID-19 testing, a fighter could come down with something. So in your opinion, are there precautions in place in case a fight, maybe like a fighter backs out? Is there a backup plan? Or more than likely with everything going on right now, will the fight probably be scrapped then? There
are and will be plenty of things that happen. I promise you. Honestly, who's better at dealing with this stuff than we are? I mean, literally, if you look at what we've been able to pull off when the world is normal, let alone now with all the craziness that's going on. I mean, people can say what they want to say. I was ready to go in California. I had the event. I had the right to do it and everything else. ESPN asked me to stand down and not do that event. So I did, out of respect for them. But we'll figure it out. I'm going to have 3 different cards there that week with men and women ready to go. So we'll figure it out.
Dana White, UFC president, with us on Action Sports Shacks on ESPN 690. Brent Martineau, Austin Lane. By the way, if anyone ducks out late in the heavyweight, I got one sitting right next to me. I'm his promoter, just in case you need anybody. But just a quick ride away. Did the 3-fight package here in Jacksonville, why did you do it that way?
Because we were headed there for this event. We have the commission, the mayor, and the governor all on board. The city has been great to us. We said we might as well just set up camp there and knock out 3 fights that week because it totally makes sense.
So talking about UFC 249, Dana, and like I said, this card is going to be a barn burner. I mean, obviously headlined by Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje. And where we're at right now, I would say Zhang Weili and then obviously Joanna Jędrzejczyk, fight of the year hands down so far. Am I wrong to think, though, that this is going to be a guaranteed fight of the year contender with Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson? Because sometimes we hype these fights up, they don't come through all the time. But with these two guys, their personalities, the way they go at each other, I have a hard time saying this fight's not going to be a barn burner.
As a promoter, you can never go out and guarantee anybody anything. If you're going to put up money on Saturday night, I can say, listen, stylistically, this is a great fight. These guys are this and that. I guarantee you there is no way that this fight is an absolute and total just madness. Both of the, stylistically, Tony Ferguson hasn't lost in 8 years. You can't train for Tony Ferguson. This guy throws crazy elbows, flying things. He continues to move forward. It's like he feels no pain. The guy is unbelievable. Justin Gaethje has fought 6 times in the UFC, 7 UFC bonuses. He moves forward. He takes shots. He tries to knock you out. It is impossible for this fight not to be incredible. As a promoter, I feel comfortable telling you that.
Well, and you said it, the world pretty much knows who Tony Ferguson, the world should know who Justin Gaethje is. If you don't, just watch any one of his last 5 fights and you're going to see the violence in full force. Have you ever met a fighter like Justin Gaethje? Because listening to his interviews, listening to him speak on the sport of MMA, like some guys do it for championships, some guys do it for the money, obviously. Justin Gaethje just seems like he does it to get punched in the face and come forward and do, and then inflict his own side of violence. Because don't forget, this guy's an all-American wrestler. This guy could easily take fights to the ground and use his technique. He doesn't do that. All he believes in is taking damage and giving damage out. Is there anybody else like Justin Gaethje in the history of the UFC?
He's an incredible fighter. He hits so hard, and you're absolutely right. He loves to knock people out. Move forward, take shots, trade, punch for punch until he hits you with the one that knocks you out. And, the fight that everybody wants to see, the fight that the world wants to see is Tony Ferguson versus Khabib. If you cannot make Tony versus Khabib, the only other best fight that you could possibly make on earth is Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje. This fight is incredible. I guarantee you fireworks. I guarantee you an incredible main event. I guarantee you a fight of the year candidate on Saturday night.
Well, and speaking of fireworks, we got Donald Cowboy Cerrone in Jacksonville as well. I think he brought his RV into town. and I was listening to an interview with ESPN where he said it's his plan to win the fight, obviously, against Anthony Pettis, which is obviously a great fight in itself. But then he wants to stay in Jacksonville and try to fight on all 3 fight cards. Now, crossing the hump over Anthony Pettis, easier said than done. But if Cowboy pulls it off, doesn't take a lot of damage, will you actually grant him his wish of trying to get 3 fights here in Jacksonville?
No. No. Yeah, you don't come out of a fight with Anthony Pettis. Yeah, going in, he's like, I want to fight 3 times. We'll see how he feels after he comes out of Saturday night.
UFC 249 on ESPN Plus, pay-per-view, Saturday right here in Jacksonville. We are talking with Dana White, president of the UFC on Action Sports Shacks on ESPN 690. We really appreciate the time, and it's pretty cool that Jacksonville will be the center of the sports world on Saturday night, first live event in the United States right here in Jacksonville. Little known fact, by the way, Mayor Lenny Curry served on the boxing commission here in the state of Florida. So working with Mayor Lenny Curry and obviously the government officials here in Jacksonville and the state of Florida were paramount to getting this done and this in Jacksonville. Dana, how much did you take a look at the AEW and what they did here with an event? And also there was a combat night that also was done in Jacksonville. Did you need to see any of that, or was that more for the networks and everybody else?
Yeah, no, it was all about the mayor and the governor, all about the mayor and the governor. So they've been awesome, and we're coming. And I seriously cannot express to you enough how excited I am to get to Jacksonville.
Yeah, you sound like you are. I've got a fight question for you. I'm a novice in this, man. Obviously, Austin's the expert, and Austin, block your ears for a moment. But a few years back, Austin obviously got a chance against Greg Hardy and lost that bout. From obviously, you run this thing, and you've done such an extraordinary job with it. But how much do you relate to the fighter and that opportunity that you guys provide to get back up off the mat, climb back up the ladder, and at least have that carrot dangling? How much respect do you have for all the fighters, the ones that have made it, the ones that have maybe dropped down the rung a little bit and are trying to get back up?
Yeah, it's hard for me to express to you how much respect I have for fighters. There's very few of them on planet Earth. They're a special, different type of human being, and very few people can do it. And when you get to the level of the UFC and you're able to break into the top 10, top 5, or become a world champion, they're very special, unique individuals.
Dana, with the climate right now, professional sports being on hold, I feel like sports channels are kind of desperate for content. And, yeah, ESPN, they have the Jordan documentary. That's been great. I'm not trying to disrespect ESPN because they're kind of paying our bills, Brent, you know what I'm saying? But I can only watch so much axe throwing and, like, old-school baseball playoff games. So with that being said, Dana, I've always heard that the Ultimate Fighter, you still plan on bringing that back. Would this be the time to bring back the Ultimate Fighter from the standpoint of, it's reality television, but it's also fighting, but it can kind of capture the audience a little bit, especially on ESPN, which is kind of hurting for content? You would think right now with COVID-19 and everything going on that the Ultimate Fighter would be a perfect time to come back on right now.
What an incredible question. We're literally working on that right now. Great question, and the answer is yes. And we are working on that right now.
That's awesome. And then I guess...
And you're right. You know what? You don't realize... I don't like television shows. I can't get into TV and all this Netflix and all this crap. I don't do it. Every time I start watching a TV show, I'm like, I could be doing much better things with my time right now. And you don't realize how much you miss live sports. I mean, I'd even watch golf right now if it was on.
Oh, Dana, don't say that, man. I have to talk about golf like twice a week on this show. Don't say that, man, because now
I would even sit down and watch that horrible, boring sport right now.
Okay, thank you. A little better for me. It's a little better. It makes my job a lot easier going forward. I appreciate it. Well, you mentioned it then, the Ultimate Fighter, right? I mean, there's a need for it right now. What makes the Ultimate Fighter so great, though, obviously, what brings the eyes there are the coaches, okay? Now, in terms of the coaches, we came across a guy at the Super Bowl, at Radio Row, I guess you would call it, named Jorge Masvidal. I actually talked to Jorge Masvidal right before he went after Kamaru Usman, and they kind of had their whole scuffle thing, and they had to be separated. It was craziness at Radio Row. But my question to you is, do you need a guy like a Jorge Masvidal, like a Conor McGregor, to headline, to spearhead these coaches for the Ultimate Fighter to try to get all the eyes on back to ESPN?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it right now, if you look at the landscape, you could have Usman versus Covington. You could do Usman versus Masvidal as coaches. You could do Khabib versus Tony or whoever wins this weekend. You could do Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa. I mean, you could have some incredible coaches right now.
All right, Dan, we got 2 more questions for you, then we'll let you get out of here, man. So obviously, can we assume that the winner of the Tony Justin Gaethje fight is going to fight Khabib, even though he's probably hesitant to make the Tony Khabib fight for like the 10th time, it seems like, if he does in fact win?
Yes, I think so. I mean, it's what you have to do. I mean, let's say Tony wins. I'm just saying, let's say Tony wins. Tony would be the interim champion. Khabib would be the champ. They would have to fight.
Last question for you then. You're obviously a big New England Patriots fan. You're from Boston. How do you feel about Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay #1? And also, do you feel like my co-host is feeling where the Patriots are going to try to tank this year a little bit, not win a lot of ball games, and try to get Trevor Lawrence? Because I feel like it's not in Bill Belichick's DNA to try to tank the season.
Yeah, well, if you look at the draft and how they reacted in the draft and really didn't get, no quarterback yet, and it played out pretty interesting to say that, hey, they're saying they're going to tank this season. Will there even be a season? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think they're looking at this season as like a throwaway season to build for the season after that. I do agree with that.
See that?
I don't like that.
Now, tanking's a dangerous word. Don't say
It
tank.
is, man. You're going to offend a lot of people.
They're not going to win a lot of games this year. You
Yeah,
promise.
and I don't think tank is the word. I think it's actually brilliant. When you look at what's going on right now, I mean, you're telling me people can't golf right now? Of course they could golf. Everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid of the media and what the media is going to say about them and all this stuff. And obviously, I'm not afraid of that. So here we are doing what we're doing. They might not go this season. There might not even be a season this season.
Well, Dan, and I'm glad you brought that up real quick because obviously the media and the UFC, they've always kind of been back and forth. You know, even when the UFC first came around, there was talks of, oh, well, it's a human cockfighting. It's a blood sport. It'll never compete with boxing. So you've essentially been dealing with the media in a not so good light since you started the UFC. I mean, is this where your mindset comes in where it's like, you know what, I'm going to do it my way because my way's got us to where we're at right now talking about UFC 249? And do you feel like, oh, go ahead.
No, the reality is these guys know nothing they literally know nothing about the business, right?
Yeah.
And I've been saying this, and guys, I'm not saying this in a negative way and like to smash the media. This is a fact, okay? These are the weakest people on earth. Now, I will look at, somebody will say something, they'll write a stupid story about that's completely not right or I don't agree with, right?
Correct.
I will Google this person, okay? Look at these people, okay? If you took the weakest people on earth, you put them all in a room together, these guys are wimps among wimps, okay? They are the wimpiest of the wimpiest. And these guys are the guys that are determining what I'm going to do with the toughest sport in the world or what the toughest athletes in the world should be doing or how they should have won that last fight. Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm being honest. That's the truth, You look at these media guys. These are the weakest people on earth. I will not let them determine how I'm going to run my business.
Brent, are you listening?
Why do I think he's talking to me and not 6'6", 245 Austin Lane
Brent,
right now?
are you listening right now, man? Oh, I'm going to use that speech the next time I go to the Jaguars press box, man. I can't wait to bring that one out. That little quote. I love it.
Dana White, we're rooting for you guys this Saturday night and the next 3 shows right here in Jacksonville because just as much we're rooting for Jacksonville and shine a light on it and kind of opening up sports once again in the United States. Best of luck this weekend, man. We really appreciate you taking some time.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
That's Dana White, president of the UFC, and he is fantastic. Raw and I was just surprised Kuz didn't have to use the drop button. That guy's got a filter on him.
Nervous.
I thought we were getting close.
But he's fantastic. We appreciate the time, really do, and appreciate everybody at UFC for helping us get that interview with Dana White. Because seriously, guys, I understand not everybody is as passionate about UFC as you are and as some others are, and it's really got a diehard and passionate base that's growing and growing and growing. And this is a big card. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm more of a novice in this sport, and admittedly, but that's a big card. Like, I know a lot of names on that card. And so, but this is a big deal for Jacksonville. This is a bit of a risk, but I think it's low risk, right, for Jacksonville. Somebody was telling me today, and as I was researching